Hi Copic fans, it's Michelle Houghton here with Copic in the Craft Room. It's been a long time since I've shown my face and said hello, so I thought I'd check in with everybody. I'm getting back on track, getting our videos restarted as we hit August and into this new school year for at least those of us in the US. I wanted to share one of the new features that I'm going to add on to Copic in the Craft Room as part of our photo tutorials on Thursday. Every once in a while I'm going to throw in kind of a process challenge, or at least a challenge for myself of how to create some patterns and colors with my Copic markers, and kind of share my process as I think through that. So it might appear as a photo or a video tutorial on Thursdays, but basically that idea of photographing or kind of collecting photographs of patterns that I like, textures that I like, and then how do I recreate those with my Copic markers. So I'm going to start that process this week, and actually I'm going to start it today with our video and show you what I mean by that. And then you'll see those happening on Thursdays every once in a while, kind of mixed in with our photo tutorials. And sometime again it will be a real simple, here's my photograph I'm working from, here's what I came up with, and really just the color combination. And other times, if I have time, I'll do a short video tutorial on kind of my thought process of how I'm choosing colors and layering colors to get to that end result that I'm trying to mimic from real life. So I'm going to be collecting photographs. On top of that, I'm adding this out to the folks just out there who watch us on YouTube or who are following us on Facebook or Pinterest. If you are interested in seeing something about how to create something with your Copic markers, send me a photo. You know I'm always up for a good challenge. So we'll add it into our Thursday tutorials. Thanks. Let's get started. We have shifted over to my kind of filming area. This way I can get some good natural light for us. And I just wanted to, I know my explanation wasn't very good. What I'm going to do over the next few months is, and encourage you to participate in as much as you want to on Copic in the Craft Room, is if you check in on, it's either going to be Wednesdays or Thursdays, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around collecting photographs. This is literally of the wood floor in my home that have texture, color, things that interest me that I want to figure out. How would I color this? How would I make this look as close to this as possible, and just kind of create a collection of that. Now, if I were doing this for a personal inventory, probably what I would do is print out some sheets and have some boxes on it, and then just collect the colors as I go. Most of these, what you'll end up with online is the photograph that I take of the object, and then a box, and then underneath it, the colors that I've used. So you'll get those two pieces, and that will be what you get. But I thought I'd at least show you a few of these in video form so you can get a sense of how I'm getting to where I end up. So this one is of wood floor, and honestly I just drew the box really, really fast with a brush multi-liner. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the colors, and I want to figure out kind of what colors I'm going to use for that. I've got most of the earth tones over here in a couple bags. So I know I want to start with a really light base, and I'm going to do this outside of my box. I'm going to start, this is an E50, which is a really good neutral base, but I'm wondering if I shouldn't be a little more yellow. This looks almost a little too peachy to me to go along with this. So I'm going to shift and maybe move over to an E40 base. And that one has quite a bit of gray. I could actually do like a YR. The 70 is going to have more purple in it. 20. See what the U21, that's a possibility. Not sure, not really. That's a 31, definitely not that. Let's go ahead and go all the way just to the, I have a feeling this is going to be way, yeah, it's got way too much pink in it. Might be back to my original thought, that E50. I think that's going to be as close as I can get to start unless I jump completely out of the color family into something else. But I think I'm going to start with that. Next, then 81 is going to be too green. I guess the 30 is probably going to be lighter. That might be even better. And I hold things up next to each other. That might work on top of that pretty well. So I think I'm going to start with the E50. So that still will be my base. And then I give myself a nice big area to play with. I've been using this marker a lot recently, so it's gonna hopefully hold out, not need to be refilled in the middle of the tutorial here. And then I'm gonna start working on top of that color to see what colors I can build up to get this effect. So this process is very similar to what I just did with the base color. I'm literally just picking up a series of markers, experimenting, seeing what they look like. I'm not just doing one layer, but actually layering 2 and 3 markers on top of each other to make sure I know what they're going to look like as I build up my layers. Something like this wood floor that has a lot of texture and color variation to it is going to take several layers, and I already know that. So the areas that I'm doing are a little bit bigger so I can experiment with different layers and just flicking small amounts of each color on top. So you can see I'm pulling a ton of stuff out of my bag and giving it a try, and some make the grade and some do not. So I have a group of markers here, and what'll happen is I'm going to base everything in that E50, and then I've got a couple things that are going to happen next. I've got some E81. I've also got some where'd it go? E30. And I'm going to start, that's going to be the next piece. So my E30 and E81, that's part 2. And what's going to happen there is some of these boards have more of a reddish base to them. And I've actually got some of these, it's not so olive as it just is a different shade. And so I'm going to come back in with some of those boards with a little bit of that E81. And then going on top of both areas is going to be a whole slew of stuff. I've got E11 and E13, and then E31, 35, and 37. And then I've got some really dark details. Not so much where the board edges are. You're going to notice there's only a couple places where I really see those. It's more where the color changes is where I see the board edges, and so I'm going to try to make that happen without a distinct black line. But I have some knots and just some darker texture in there, so the E49 is going to finish it up, but very lightly. That last step you could do with a multi-liner instead, because these are going to be super tiny little lines. So I'm going to try to mimic this. I'll get you in closer so that you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. So I'm starting with that E50 and starting to color in a block. I'm not concerned about hitting the edges. I'm really just trying to fill an area. And then I am going to go ahead and do the planks of the wood floor kind of at the angle they are in my screenshot that I did on my phone. So now that was that 81, and this is the 30. And that's going on top of the E50 to kind of change the base color of some of those boards. E11 is next, and this is where I'm already starting some texture on the boards. This one is actually going to go over most of the boards. It's going to create some of that wood grain, and it's going to go on all 3 of the different color variations, kind of that olive, the reddish tone, and then even the areas that stay just with the E50. Some of those boards will be considerably lighter when we're done, and some will get darker. E13 is next, just continuing those textures and getting more wood grain. Some of the boards are going to start looking considerably darker at this step, and even more so as we progress further. Some of the boards I'm flicking with a broader stroke, and others are getting just the fine tip of that brush nib. Again, just to darken some areas deeper versus creating just the texture of that wood grain. Next is, I had a little bit of E81 to put back down again for that olive color. E31 is next. Again, more wood grain, just another layer. That board got hit with a broader stroke to darken it or just change that base color a little bit. E35 is next, and this is where we really start to see actual grain marks on the boards. All of these with the E35 are getting that really, just the tip or of the brush nib, so it's a very fine line. They aren't straight and they aren't going all the way the length of the board, just creating some of that look of a wood grain. So some of them have some wave to it. They're starting in the middle, not going all the way across. E37 is next, and not all the boards are going to get this E37. In fact, it only has a few places where it's used in the wood grain itself, in those darker boards. And then I'm creating some of those knots. E49 I decided was so dark that it's only going into those very darkest spots, which are some of the knots in the wood. E31 is next, and it's really, I'm using it to soften some of those darker areas and really smooth some of those areas out. E81, again, softening very lightly on top. I'm not trying to blend it together. E30, E11. I'm just softening. I'm not doing a bunch of scrubbing with the color. It's light flicking across the surface. E31, and we're done. So this is my attempt. It is not a perfect match. It never will be, but it's a close replica, and I could use this for wood floors, for tabletops. I was trying to match actual boards on my floor, but if I was using it, this color combination or this type of technique on a card or a piece of an image, I wouldn't have to like try to figure out, ooh, which board is next, where is that knot? I can do it more randomly, and it would do that process a whole lot quicker. So I'm gonna go ahead and write down this color combination that I use so I know what's down here in this mess. And I might even, this is just a standard quarter sheet of my Copic paper. I might actually even just punch holes in the top of this and make a ring little file of all these little techniques I'm gonna try. Thanks for joining me this week. Have a happy, colorful week.